Welcome to my video on rectangular prism and cylinder practical problems. So today we're going to look at word problems that involve finding the volume and the surface area. And we're going to need to identify some key words to help us determine if it's asking for the volume or if it's asking for the surface area. So it says sort the terms below to distinguish between the volume and surface area. So remember, volume is how much something can hold, and surface area is the area of all the surfaces on the outside of the shape. So the first word is cover, so that's talking about the outside. The next word is hold, so that's volume. Capacity. For those of you who don't know what capacity is how much it can hold. So if the capacity of the gym is 750 people, that means you can have up to 750 people in the gym. Decorate. So if we're decorating something, we're talking about the outside. So that's surface area. Fill is talking about the inside, so that's volume. Wrap is talking about the outside. Now here's two labels that we often use for volume and surface area is cubic units, so that's volume. And remember, cubic means 3. And then we have square units, which means 2. So these are all words that can help us identify whether the question is asking for surface area or volume. So now let's look at the steps. So the first step is to read the problem, then determine the shape and formula by underlining or highlighting keywords, substitute or plug in the numbers, and then the last step is to work out the problem, solve. So here are our formulas. Cylinder, we have the volume is pi times radius squared times height. And then for the surface area of a cylinder, we have 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi rh. And remember, the 2 pi r squared represents the two circles, and the 2 pi rh represents the rectangle. And then we have rectangular prism, volume is length times width times height. And then surface area of a rectangular prism, 2LW plus 2LH plus 2WH. And remember, the length and the width is talking about the top and the bottom. That's why we're multiplying by 2. 2LH is talking about the front and the back, and 2WH is talking about the two sides. So if you want to get out a highlighter, go ahead and pause the video. If you don't have a highlighter, then you can just underline the keywords. So welcome back if you pause the video for a highlighter. So the directions say determine the formula and then find the volume or surface area of the figure. So how much water could a fish tank hold if the length was 46 inches, the width was 14 inches, and the height was 22 inches? So I'm going to highlight the fish tank, hold. The length was 46 inches, the width was 14 inches, and the height was 22 inches. Now, fish tank, I can't really tell just yet what shape it is, just if I just say fish tank, because we could have fish tanks that are in the shape of rectangular prism or cylinder. But because I have a length, a width, and a height, I know it's got to be a rectangular prism. And the word hold is talking about volume, so I'm going to write the volume formula for a rectangular prism, which is V equals length times width times height. And now what I like to do is list what letters I need. So I need L, and if I look up here, it's 46. I need W, or width, which is 14, and I need H, which is height, and it's 22. Now all I do is substitute the number in for the letters. So 46 is my length, my width is 14, and my height is 22. When I multiply those together, I get 14,168 inches cubed for volume. So the inches cubed are called cubic units here because I have the 3 there. Okay, let's look at number 2. John wants to paint a barrel. So barrel tells me that it's a cylinder in his riding arena with spray paint. Each barrel measures 3.5 feet tall and has a radius of 1 1/4 feet. This is another clue as to that it's a cylinder. How much spray paint will he need to cover the barrel? Now, the key word here is cover, so it's looking for surface area. And because it's a cylinder, I'm going to use 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. Now look at the letters I need. I need a radius and a height. So I look back at the problem. The radius is 1 1/4 feet. Now I know 1/4 is 0.25 and there's a 1 in front. So it's going to be 1 25/100. Now, if I didn't know what 1/4 is, I could do 1 divided by 4 in my calculator. But 1/4 is one that we use quite frequently. 3.5 feet tall. Now, that's the same as height. So it's 3.5 because the decimal for 1/2 is 0.5. Again, if you didn't know it, 1 divided by 2. Okay, now we're going to substitute in. So we're going to copy down the 2. We're going to take out the pi and put 3.14. We're going to take out the r and put the radius, 1.25 squared. And we're going to box it in. Plus 2 times pi, which is 3.14, times the radius, 1 25/100, times the height, which is 3 5/10. And go ahead and box that in. Now remember, this is the area of the 2 circles plus the area of the rectangle. Now, when we type this into our calculator, we got to make sure we hit equals after we type this part in. So you would type in 2 times 3.14 times 1.25, hit the x squared button, and then you have to be sure you hit equals. Now, if you didn't have the x squared button on your calculator, then you could do 1.25 times 1.25. So I've already done that for you. So it's 9.8125 plus, and then I would type this in, and I would get 27 and 475 thousandths. The last step is to add the 2 areas up, and I get 37 and 2,875 10,000ths. Now the directions don't tell us to, but you will in the future have to round these, maybe on your classwork or homework. So we're going to practice rounding to the nearest tenth. So remember, it's 1 number after the decimal. Look to the right. If it's 5 or above, I'm going to give it a shove, and it is. So it's 37 and 3/10 feet squared. Now notice my label is feet squared here because we're talking about area. Now here I rounded it and here I didn't. The reason I didn't round this one is because I didn't need to. If it's a whole number, I don't need to round it to the nearest tenth. The only time I need to round it to the nearest tenth is if I have a number after the tenths place, and here I do, so I can round that. Okay, let's look at number 3. A rectangular board game is 14 inches wide, 18 inches long, and 2 inches high. If I give the game to my niece for her birthday, how many square inches of wrapping paper will I need? So it tells me off the bat, rectangular board game. I know that it's 14 inches wide, 18 inches long, 2 inches high. So I know I'm talking about a rectangular prism here. Square inches and wrapping paper tell me that I'm talking about surface area. So I need the surface area of a rectangular prism, so that is 2LW plus 2LH plus 2WH. Now I'm going to list my length, which is 18. My width is 14, and my height is 2. Now I substitute in, so 2 times my length, so I look over here and I wrote 18. My width is 14, and I'm going to box that part in. So remember, that's the top and the bottom. Now we're going to look at the front and the back. So 2 times the length, which is 18, times the height, which is 2. Box it in. So there's the front and the back. And then, last but not least, the two sides. So 2 times the width, which is 14, and the height, which is 2. And box it in. So there's the two sides. Now 2 times 18 times 14 is 504, plus 2 times 18 times 2 is 72. And the last part, 2 times 14 times 2 is 56. When I add that up, I get 632 inches squared. Notice no rounding here because there isn't a number after the tens place. There isn't even a number in the tens place. It's a whole number. And notice my label is inches squared. Okay, let's look at the next problem. A gas station underground storage tank, so measures 30 feet tall and has a diameter of 10 feet. How much fuel can the tank hold? Okay, the storage tank here tells me that it's going to be a cylinder, and also I have 30 feet tall, and when I have a diameter or a radius and a height, then I know we're looking for volume, or sorry, we're talking about a cylinder. So 30 feet tall and a diameter, we're talking about a cylinder. So now the hold tells me that it's volume. So V equals pi r squared h. Now look what we need. We need a radius and a height. But if I read the problem, I don't see a radius. But I do see the word diameter. And remember, diameter is all the way across, and the radius is halfway across. So half of 10 is 5, or you could do 10 divided by 2. The height is 30 because height is the same as how tall something is. And now I'm going to replace the symbols and letters. So pi is 3.14. The radius is 5, and I need to square it, times the height, which is 30. Now I need to remember when I type this into my calculator, I need to make sure I hit equals when I type it in. So I would type in 3.14 times 5 squared times 30, hit equals, and I would get 2,355 feet cubed. Now remember, if your calculator doesn't have the x squared button, then instead of typing in 5x squared, you could type in 5 times 5. Okay, let's look at the last problem. A container is in the shape of a cube, and it will be completely filled with sand. The container has an edge length of 6. What is the exact number of cubic inches of sand needed to completely fill the container? So it's in the shape of a cube, okay? So all the surfaces are squares, but we know that a square is also a rectangle. So a cube is actually a rectangular prism, okay? And we're filling it, so that tells us its volume. And it says the edge length is 6 inches. Well, in a cube, all the length, the width, and the height are all the same. So it says, what is the exact cubic inches? So that's another keyword for volume to fill the container. So we know we're doing volume of a rectangular prism. So V equals length times width times height. We know in a cube, all the sides are the same length. So we have the length is 6, the width is going to be 6, and the height is going to be 6. So now we're going to replace, so 6 times 6 times 6, and we get 216 inches cubed. So a couple things that you have to remember. First of all, a cube, all the measurements are going to be the same. Remember that the label for area is square inches, and remember the label for volume is cubic inches. And when you do your classwork and homework, be sure to use the list that we made on the front page to help you out. That concludes our notes on rectangular prism and cylinder practical problems. I hope you have a great day.